Hello everybody! Today I will show you how to troubleshoot and fix the 502 bad gateway error from Nginx. So I have an Nginx installed on an Ubuntu server running on DigitalOcean. And as you can see, if I refresh the page, I still get the 502 error. Okay, so let's head to our terminal. I have already SSH'd into the server, and the first thing that I would do is check the status of the Nginx service. To do that, just type sudo systemctl status nginx and then type your sudo password. Okay, as we can see, Nginx is up and running. So this means that the problem is not actually with Nginx, but the service that Nginx is trying to connect to. Usually the first thing that you should do is always check your error logs. There you could actually see more information about the actual problem rather than a generic 500 error. So to check your Nginx error log, just type sudo tail -f, then /var/log/nginx/error.log and then hit enter. This will show you the last few lines of the log and also stream any new errors that come in. So for example, if I go back to my browser and refresh the page a couple of times, and if I go back to the terminal, as you can see, we have some new entries here. In the log, we have some really valuable information which will tell us what the actual issue is. So for example, here we can see that we are getting connection refused while the Nginx service is trying to connect to the upstream. So that is actually our backend service. And we also see the port that Nginx is trying to connect to. For me, my backend service is running on port 8080, but for you, this might be something different. However, the error that we are seeing most likely means that the backend service that we have is not running. To verify the Nginx configuration, you could actually check your Nginx server block. To do that, just type sudo cat /etc/nginx/sites enabled and then the name of your Nginx server block. In my case, it's just the default one. If you have multiple Nginx server blocks, make sure to check the one that's linked to your domain name. In the Nginx server block, look for your location configuration and more specifically for the proxy pass rows. So I can see again here that the proxy pass is set to basically proxy the Nginx traffic to a backend service on port 8080. So here is where things get a little bit more specific because the backend service that you have could be really specific to your own configuration. For example, you could be running a Node.js server or a Docker container or some other custom backend service. So you would really need to figure out what's your backend service and how to start it. In my case, it is a Docker container. So if I do a docker ps-a, I will be able to see that the Docker container that should be running has exited 5 minutes ago. So what I would need to do is run sudo docker start followed by the container ID, and this would start the container. That way, the service would again start listening on port 8080. And if I go back to my browser and hit refresh, I'll be able to see my Laravel application up and running. But of course, if you're running Node.js, you might have to start your Node server, or if you're running some other backend service, you'll need to make sure that it's started. A good tip is to check the history of your server by typing history and see what other commands have been run so that you might find out what service was started before. Also make sure to check your Docker logs to see why the Docker container was stopped in the first place. Another thing that could be causing the problem is if you have a wrongly specified port in your proxy pass in the Nginx configuration. You need to make sure that the backend service is listening on the same port that you've specified in your Nginx reverse proxy row. Another very common problem could be PHP FPM. So if you're using PHP FPM, make sure that the service is started. In most cases, you can do that with systemctl start php-fpm. And this is pretty much it. I hope you find this helpful, and if so, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you, and I'll see you next.